Mike, why don't you give us the intro tonight?
Oh,
Welcome,
okay.
everybody.
Well,
To
oh, sorry,
this
wrong
week's-
one.
Oh boy, we're starting off with bang now. So, welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Liberty First Weekly Roundtable. With me, I have Frank Johnson. He's the co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, and he also does the Range Report for the Liberty First Foundation. Alongside him is Michael Voss from No Sound Bites Allowed, political commentary. He puts a lot of insight in and a lot of political color into our broadcast. Below us, you'll see Dal Grimm. He doesn't have live stream. He doesn't have a camera currently, but he does offer a lot of insight as about what's going on in the United States and across the world. And then we have our resident LGB representative, Jan Rains. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining.
Good evening, folks. I trust everybody had a splendid week.
It's been eventful.
Not bad. Busy.
I'm a
Busy
little
or
more.
more?
I'm
It's been
disappointed.
getting rain all week.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's a lot.
rivers are quite full. Just a quick shout out. I'm glad to be here. Mrs. Grimm ended up having a shoulder surgery today, so she came out of that and came home today. So she's
Hope
reposing.
she has a speedy recovery.
Thank you very much.
What was the nature of the surgery? Rotator cuff?
It was actually tendonitis, arthritis in the shoulder caused by an injury at work. So they finally got everything cleared away.
Well, make sure you get representation.
Oh, already had that. Been fighting for 2 years. That's why we had to wait so long.
Yeah, well, having just gone through that myself, except for the ankle, I understand the pain. I wish her a quick and speedy recovery, and for good fortunes moving forward.
Yeah, I've been through it, and I wish I would have had better representation.
I agree. I went through it too.
Yeah,
You guys are able to use your shoulders, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, is it better?
But there was an injury that not that long ago. Well, actually, it's been quite a few years ago that I couldn't.
Ooh.
I had a herniated disc, and I couldn't raise my shoulder more or my arm more than about 10 degrees.
Oh man.
And my hand was about paralyzed.
I've had a torn rotator cuff for about 20 years. So
I actually have a tear in my rotor cuff, and when they told me they were going to go in and do surgery, after I woke up, they told me that they didn't fix the tear because it was deemed too small.
Oh.
So
that's
I
not
have
going to cause a
issues
problem.
at times.
Thankfully, her rotator cuff wasn't torn. It was just she had buildup on the end of her shoulders, and it was causing nerve damage. So they managed to open that section up, and then now it's supposed to alleviate the nerve. So they're hoping that she'll have a full recovery and get full range of motion and strength back in her arm. That's the hope. We'll see.
hopefully. Time and therapy will all tell. Just don't have her hold back on anything that she does for working on the range of motion, because once you healed, whatever you led to range of motion at that point is what you're going to be stuck at. So get your range of motion back, no matter how much pain it causes. Get that back, and you'll heal around it. At least you'll get better use of it in the future.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we're done with the medical portion of this evening's show, and everybody's going to be happy and well for the rest of the evening, first topic of the night. Vass, I want to throw this to you. Carrie Lake, somebody who I think is a force to be reckoned with in the arena of politics, and all politics as usual. released a little bit of bombshell information this week, but it seems that we're not getting the entire story from all parties. So if you want to fill us in a little bit about what's going on.
All right. So, for people to know what's going on, Carrie Lake is currently running for senator in Arizona. She's been a very big name in Arizona. She ran for governor there. There was a big scandal about the voting. Some of the voting machines weren't working on election day. She had a question about the registration, all the voter registrations as well. She's been back and forth in courts on that. She then followed it up with a run for Senate, which is currently ongoing, her 2024 Senate race. Now, so she's been a very big supporter of Donald Trump. She's been a right of the party kind of candidate. She's not an establishment candidate, never was. And many people have thought going in as we've been getting closer and closer to Trump picking his VP, she's one of the top names in terms of women for the VP. It's her, Elise Stefanik. Some people are now saying Kristi Noem, but that's it for the women. And then there's Tim Scott and one or two other names, but those are the main four people. So that gives you an idea of who we're talking about. Now, it just came out this week that 10 months ago, the GOP chairman of Arizona, Jeff DeWitt, had at that time employed Carrie Lake. They were having a private conversation in Carrie Lake's house. That private conversation also contained a section in it that was now released by Carrie Lake at this time, which sounds like some people have tried to use the word bribe. They've used the word cajole. They've used a lot of terms to say, he was basically telling her, get out the race for the Senate and wait, and you'll get money if you do it. So a lot of people have been taking it in that way, and that's the way that Carrie Lake has phrased it. Now, I do have sources across the country, and Arizona is one of the places where I have sources, and many parties, not just in the Republican Party, but many other parties across the country. And what we're being told, that's what we were told, and Carrie Lake said, because of that clip of the audio conversation, she demanded that Jeff DeWitt, the chair of Arizona, resign. And he did. And he came out with a public statement about it. In the public statement does include some of the stuff that's happening in the background, that there are God knows how many conversations that she recorded without his knowledge or permission that she may release in segments. Again, this is one of the critical parts. Now, the background of this, what's happening in back doors, none of this is about her running for Senate. That has nothing to do with why she made the statement, why she tried to get Jeff DeWitt to resign, which he did, and it has nothing to do with very little with what he's afraid of. There's an entire other scenario that is internal within the Arizona GOP that's happening that the public doesn't know about, that they don't want to make public. I can't say exactly what it is because of the source. It would identify the source. But they're having an entirely different internal conflict. This is the external version that we're seeing. Her content, according to Jeff DeWitt, in his published statement, which you can see on Twitter as well, he's already said he resigned not because of what he said to her, but because of he has no idea what she's going to publish and how she will frame it. And that's just too much damage for a position he doesn't get paid for. The chairman of GOP, even for a state, don't get paid. Mm-hmm. The thing that gets me about this is not only is there inside baseball, a lot of it going on that do not make Carrie Lake look good. What we do know is she's out of the VP race. There's too much heat. She makes Arizona is going to be in turmoil throughout 2024. No guarantee that she's going to make it to the Senate. And she's no longer a target for Trump as a VP. She just lost the VP because no one trusts her.
She definitely lost the VP, but she's also damaged herself tremendously with the Republican Party. It's going to be very hard for her to get any type of support from the Republican Party for pretty much anything she does going forward.
Yeah, and it's not just the establishment; it's everyone, because everyone, again, inside, everybody knows. The mainstream media doesn't know or won't tell public, but inside the party, everybody knows she violated a lot of trust in the way she did this and what the reason was for all of this happening in the first place. So she really has torched her entire future politically,
Yeah, she
and
has.
it's really a shame.
Unless she's planning on going independent. Okay, that's the only thing I could see. The only potential path forward she has is going independent, but she's going to have a real hard time doing that and being able to work with any party after what she's done.
I don't see it happening, because even other members, elected officials, don't want to touch her. They don't trust her. How many conversations have
That's
you
it.
had
She
that's been
just lost
recorded?
all credibility, all trust.
Yeah. How can anyone trust you? I mean, even I, as a member of the press, I have many people, like I said, I have many contacts across the entire country, but every one of my contacts in every party know that when I'm having a private conversation, it's a private conversation. There's a lot of things I know about members of Congress in every party, candidates that have run across the country. Lots of conversations I had that many people will go, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, it's a private conversation. It wasn't on the record. I can't tell you about it. I'm not going to say it. And, that's something that's very important. No one would ever talk to me again if I revealed my sources or the inside information. Same thing in politics. How's any senator, any member of Congress, any state legislature, how can they get anything done if they are afraid that I pissed her off? This conversation we had 2 years ago, a clip of it is going to come out. And by the way, if you've never run for an elected office, there's always someone who goes, maybe you should wait 2 years. It's not quite the right year. We can take the time, raise up some more money, introduce you to some more donors, get you to know more people, and maybe in 2 years you'll be able to have a better race. I've had people say that to me before. I've run for Congress. I've run for state level. I've had that conversation. I've had that conversation with other people. And if you took it out of context, yes, someone's go, oh, you're trying to stop them. No, I'm trying to advise them that maybe they're not set up with their infrastructure. Their message is a mess. Not enough people know who they are. They need more money.
But
Actually,
how much?
Mike brought up a great point there. Is okay, when they advised you that maybe you should wait so that you can raise some more money and so forth. Being as we don't have the full recording, we only have the section that she released. We don't know that that's not what was being advised.
Well, we do know, according to Jeff DeWitt of Arizona, the former GOP chairman, he did say in his public response that he essentially said, "Yeah, I wasn't telling her not to run. I was telling her about the conditions of the race," which is essentially what I just said. Is we may be able to do better later.
All right, but we were also saying that this was a recording that was made 8 months ago, 9 months ago,
10 months ago.
10 months ago. All right, so we have a recording that was made 10 months ago. We don't know necessarily if the recording was played verbatim or if it had been edited in any way.
We know it wasn't. Well, when I say it's not verbatim, there's no context. We only have a very small segment.
Right. Well, in that context, there are some very powerful statements being said by this person as far as the big names back east that don't want her to do something, and there's a lot of potential. Is even with limited context, I didn't get the impression of this isn't the right time for you to run. I got the context of there's people that don't want you to run.
Yeah,
that was the context that I got out of it, and that there was money being offered for her not to.
I don't know that there's money being offered for her not to. When I'm listening to it again, I'm listening to it in a different way than the general public. Having been in that situation, having had these kinds of conversations, both as candidate and talking to candidates and parties, it's such a small segment. Yeah, there's always somebody. There's always a big donor that wants someone else. They have a friend, they have their best, they want to run, they have a family member that wants to run. There's always someone in big money somewhere that wants influence in that race. And they always have a favorite. No one's 100%.
Right.
So there's always that.
But we're talking about somebody, if this guy was talking to her about the condition of the race, you're talking about the condition of the race as it was 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the condition of the race as it stands today.
Right.
Now, I don't think Carrie Lake needs to raise a lot of money for advertising.
Oh, yeah.
She's a lightning rod. She's on the news every minute of every day. She doesn't need to run ad campaigns. All she has to do is open her mouth, and there's going to be 60 cameras around her.
No, she needs it for remedying her and healing her public outlook. Although the attention she gets is negative.
I'm talking about before this tape.
Yeah, I'm talking about then. Even 10 months ago, she had her race for governor and her lawsuits. That's all negative, and they were slamming her nonstop. Even 10 months, even a year ago.
And I'm looking at that whole situation as just a smaller version of exactly what happened to Trump.
No, it's not quite the same. And again,
look,
I wish I could say some of the things that I know.
Her and her followers ran a campaign to which they, by all metrics, should have won. There was a lot of dubious vote counting, dubious machines going down, a whole bunch of stuff. The media was against her every step of the way. The establishment in the swamp against her every step of the way.
Yeah.
She winds up losing a race in a squeaker versus somebody who didn't run any ad campaigns at all, who didn't debate, who didn't show up, who had a worse public opinion record than she did. She questions it, files a suit. They don't even give her an opportunity to present the overwhelming evidence that they have, including testimony of poll workers and everything else. I could understand why the woman's a little pissed. I can understand.
She's not that innocent in this. She really isn't.
I'm not saying she's innocent. Listen, most fighters are not. Most fighters are going to be in there. They're going to be willing to get down and dirty. I'm just concerned that maybe there's a lot more to this that not anybody knows, and this is just peeling the scab off a very bad infection in this part of the RNC. I was for a long time ago. I would understand someone coming to her today and saying, listen, maybe after all of this scandals going on, maybe this ain't the best time to race because of all the damage that was done. But 10 months ago, it was a different picture. Why would they be telling her 10 months ago not to run?
Because of the same reasons why they don't want her in the race now. Actually, none of that has changed.
I just think they don't want to.
Well, there is an element of that, but there is more to it than just that. One of the things I would highlight, though, and no one's really talking about it, why did she release it 10 months later? If it was such a big deal, if it had such a massive impact, if it was so important, you mean to tell me after 10 months, talking with her family throughout the entire time that she's been preparing and going out and she's been running, you mean after 10 months, she only just now at this moment decided to release this information? Why? What changed?
She might have been waiting for a foot to drop. She might have been waiting for somebody to actually put a name on one of those numbers and say, okay, this is the precursor. Here's the backup.
No. If I hope someone gives permission or breaks their silence about what really caused this. And I think a lot of people would change their opinion. I went from looking forward to seeing her get the VP pick to, no, I don't want her in. That's all I can say about it.
Now, she's a political time bomb, literally. nobody's going to
I had a couple
have
questions.
anything to do with her.
I
Go
I had
ahead,
a
Bill.
couple questions about that. Did she verify that that was a private conversation held in her home?
Say it again.
Sorry, did she confirm that that was a private conversation that she had at her home?
Yes, she's confirmed it, and so has Jeff DeWitt.
Okay. The reason I ask is because when I was listening to the audio, it sounded like they were eating. Did anybody else get that?
They were at her
It sounded
kitchen
like-
table, and
Oh.
I think she did give him some food or something to drink. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because it sounded like they were eating over dinner. And if you're in home and you're recording, I don't understand why you would. Well, unless you planned on later gathering evidence of some sort, why would you record a conversation in your home? The speculation I have about that is this. The GOP has been having a lot of problems with this infighting between the neocons and the American First Movement. So here she has this recording. She's picked it up, and we're at a pivotal moment right now in the GOP race where there's enough distrust of the establishment GOP and the neocons that I think if she released this now, there's a very good chance that it would negatively reflect on the neocons and the GOP, and persons like Ronna McDaniels, if she was ever implicated with working with DeWitt, would also be forced to resign, allowing for a new chair of the GOP to come to the fore who might be more not forgiving, what's the word? More in line with America First, and would not so tightly rein in things like support and funding for those types of candidates.
Keep running down that road. I'll say this, Dal. Keep running down that road. But that's how I'll answer that part of it. But here's the problem for the electorate, for the nation. This is why the nation should be concerned. We're seeing more and more within the parties, left and right, where we're seeing more manipulation going on behind the scenes that is altering the opportunity for people to vote. The media isn't doing its job in getting the story out. They're not asking critical questions, and the public is being denied choices based on all the information is available. I'll point to Bernie Sanders when he was forced out and Hillary Clinton was given the position. In fact, going back, Obama, they kicked Hillary out to give the nomination to Obama. They did it again to Hillary to Bernie for Hillary. We've now in this race, we've seen that RFK was essentially kicked out of the party. He had to go independent because they tried to shunt him. And look at what just happened in New Hampshire, where they nullified every single Democrat in terms of Joe Biden in the presidential race. We are seeing this more and more often, where behind the scenes decisions are being made that affect whether or not people get to have their voice heard. Their vote is being nullified over and over again. And very often the news media could make a difference by telling the public the truth, or at the very least, if you can't get the quote, ask questions so that someone will be forced to give that answer.
But that just shows that the media is complicit in the manipulation. The legacy media right now, even though because they're not getting the info out and they're not asking the questions, either they're completely clueless because they're not being kept in the loop, which is unlikely because they've had people embedded in both parties for many years, or they know that if they show any more light on this, the fracturing that's happening within the two parties, it's going to make American politics look so disjointed that nobody's going to turn out to vote because nobody's going to know who to vote for.
And ultimately, that's the bigger problem about what's happening in Arizona right now. It's another reason it's eroding the trust and faith in our elections, the election system, as well as our politicians that everyone we already know they're corrupt. but it just adds another layer to that. And it's not one party. I gave the examples of Democrats over several decades, and now we're seeing it. And here's another example, a very prominent one in the Republican Party. And I know this has been happening at state level. I know it happens in New York State in particular, that we've seen this happen, and public just doesn't know. It's really sad.
If I remember right, when she was running for governor,
Hey, Jan, speak up.
I said, if I remember right, when she was running for governor, didn't she make the same claim that they told her to wait 2 years?
Similar,
Yes.
similar, yeah.
She alluded to it, but she didn't present any proof at the time.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if it's because she did have this recording, but she held it back because she was still hoping not to erode further trust in the GOP, but try to take care of business as usual. And it just didn't look like it was going to happen that way. And now that things are fracturing more and the trust has continued to erode, there's an opportunity for her to kind of push the rest of it over the edge and maybe affect some change in the main GOP structure so that America First candidates have more of an even foothold with the neocons or better, and they get more support for running their races locally in the states. Not necessarily on the national stage, but at least on the state level, so that when she ran for senator, things would look a little more or a little less tenuous. She would have more support behind her from the mainstream of the party so that she could actually have a platform on which to stand and broadcast nationwide. That's my speculation. That's completely speculation. I don't have anything to back that up, but looking at everything we know, that's where, if you do the thought experiment and work your way through it, that's where I would go. If I was running for candidate and I saw that something was happening like what's happening right now, and I had something that might tip the scales and affect some sort of drastic change that would better my chances, then now would be the perfect moment to do it, especially since there's a very eroded trust in the federal government because we're seeing them basically abdicate their duties to the states. And so there's no trust there. We see the corruption of state legislatures, like with Cuomo. You just saw that Cuomo was found guilty of sexual misconduct proper, like they just did the whole thing. And at least, props to Stefanik, because she said, great, you got him on the sexual harassment, but what about all the innocents that ended up dying from his mismanagement and his gross negligence of duty? You never even touched that, but you're going to boot him out over this and censure him from the party because of this? That doesn't make any sense. Or with Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs right now has been alleged that she is working with property in Arizona that is being used by cartels. That she's part of these deals where she wrote off certain parts of property throughout Arizona. The cartels went through her to buy those properties, and they're using it as a caravan chain to ship illegals from the border from Arizona into the rest of the United States.
Well, here's for Andrew Cuomo, the reason why the 16,000 Americans that were killed under his watch by his orders, and why was that not investigated? Why was it not investigated that he actively covered it up and told the New York State legislature that he was covering it up? That was the admission by his secretary, Maria, I forget her last name now. We already know that happened. Why was that not investigated? Why is he not charged? Because he has a war chest with several $1 million, and he's still a player in New York politics and donating to various campaigns, lending whatever political weight he has to certain candidates. And so he's still a player.
He's got a lot of skeletons in the closet.
Yeah. He has all the connections to the web.
Well, he knows where everybody else's bodies are buried.
Exactly. So that's why he's safe. As for
I mean,
Katie
New York
Hobbs,
is one of the most corrupt states, and Como is one of the most corrupt governors.
Yeah.
Has been shown time and time again, and he still managed to stay in office.
You know, they said they took care of the mafia in the city, but really all they did was move to Albany.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly true. Him and his father were two of the most corrupt governors ever.
That's why they had to get rid of the Moreland Commission. You know, these are all the things they expect the public to forget about. And this is how come we have so much, I believe, why we have so much election apathy. It's not because people don't have time to vote. It's not because people don't know the issues. It is because it takes too much money to run, yes, but it's really, look at what we're seeing from these elected officials. The failures, the double standards, the violations of law. And this is just the stuff that's getting through the filter of the mainstream news media, which has an agenda and is more than willing to push out propaganda all day long. I mean, look at what Rachel Maddow did in New Hampshire. She literally, breaking news, Trump won New Hampshire solidly, no question, validated his position with Republicans. And she said, oh, we're not going to let you, the public, hear that. This is a man running for president of the United States. If she thought that Trump was absolutely horrible and that he's the devil itself, wouldn't you want everyone in America to hear what he says so you can point out how evil and how bad this is? No, she instead said, you can't hear him. We're not going to let you hear his voice. He's running for the presidency. This is one of the most important positions in the world. He has a track record that you can call him out on if he misstates his factual, empirical record to make your case, Rachel Maddow. And instead of doing that, instead of giving people information and letting them make up their own mind to have critical thoughts about what's going on and encouraging them to vote because they know what's going on. Instead, she says, no, I'm going to do it for you. Don't think you don't get to hear him. Just remember, Biden is great. You vote for him. That's scary. That's propaganda.
Well, don't you remember what the Morning Joe, that blonde, had to say a few years ago? Who is this person to tell the American people anything? It's our job to tell the American people what to think.
Yeah. That's what the media's turned into. It's really, this is why we have so much voter apathy. It's not because, I can't mail in a ballot. Yes, you can. I'm black and I can't vote. Yes, you can.
Well, this is why when it comes to that whole Carrie Lake situation that's going on out there, I want to wait and I want to hear more about what's going on. I want to hear the little insider tidbits. I want to see what else she's got, because you might have information from somebody on the inside, but it don't necessarily mean they have the accurate information they gave you.
I trust my source.
You can trust your source as being honest.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt for a minute that your source would lie to you. I don't know whether or not the people that tell you source information are going to lie to them.
Well, true. It's always possible, but I have high confidence in the source. I've used them before in background for research I've done, and I'd say I have 90% confidence in the information they provide to me. So I'm very confident there's a lot more to this story. I think this story is going to die. They're going to bury this because they just don't want to deal with it publicly.
I know Voss is.
I don't know if she's gonna roll over and go along willingly. I think, like she said on the tape, you're gonna have to kill me. I think you can remember this. This is a woman who's not a politician. She's coming from the media circle. You know, she made her bones in Arizona as being. She was a news presenter for a long time. She was a reporter. She's been on that side of the equation where she knows how the media operates. You see the way she handles the media. She does a very good job at doing that. I don't think that she's stupid by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh no, not at all.
So I think if there's something going on, like I said, I'm going to reserve judgment on stuff,
Mhm.
but I'm just gonna err on the side of saying, listen, before we discount what her claims are going to be, let's hear it out. As far as saying why would somebody record something, listen,
It's in
I
her
was-
nature.
I was
From
a
a
general
background.
contractor for a long time. All right. I did a lot of work for a lot of people. And I had one client I knew going in when I went up there to collect, we were going to have a hard time. And because I just got a sense of it. And it was recorded. And people say, well, why would you record it? I said, sometimes you just have a gut reaction. Something tells you need something to cover yourself. And as far as people saying, well, is it a matter of a two-party, do you need two-party consent to record in Arizona?
Hmm.
That is off the table when it's in one party's private residence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but my I'm not worried about those aspects of it. It's more, you know what? Just release the whole damn tape, or minus seriously personal information. Release
Right,
the whole damn.
that's what I said. If this guy was if this guy is so convinced that he was taken out of context,
Mhm.
that he was taken out and it wasn't a really representation of what the conversation was, then why would you back out? Why?
Because all it takes is look at we are in a society of accusation equals guilt. We see that all the time. We've seen that with Me Too. We see that with Trump right now. We see that with the J6 prisoners. We see this all the time. Accusation equals guilt. Unless you happen to be one of the enlightened ones, like, say, Alec Baldwin, then everyone else is you. Red flag law is a great example of that. We've even legislated this where it's accusation equals guilt. No crime needs to be committed. No proof needs to be provided.
I know. But I'm just, for me, I'm a stand and fight guy.
I get it.
If somebody said something, if I said something that was taken out of context and you're going to try and bury me over it, I'm going to fight you tooth and nail until the truth comes out. If this guy was so willing to give up so easily, so quickly, tells me there's a lot more going on than what was just on those tapes. And if she had a sense to why she had to record it, it was probably because it was not the first of that kind of conversation that took place, directed towards her.
Probably not. But
No,
again,
it was probably just one of many.
well,
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of court intrigue. If you study history and you look at how the courts behaved in the monarchies, this is very similar. Like you have the courtiers going behind each other's backs, making backroom deals to subvert the power of the king. There's assassinations in place. There's smear campaigns. There's scandal. It all reminds me of the old court intrigues.
yeah, it's very much like the old court intrigue. But remember, folks, we've raised more questions. We've delved into this with more detail than MSNBC, CNN, ABC, Fox News, and the New York Times combined.
And you want to know what's funny? They haven't dived into this thing, and it's Kerry friggin' Lake that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They would look for any opportunity in the world to throw gasoline on her and set her on fire, and yet they're not covering this. That's got to tell you something's going on.
Yeah.
It's got to tell you something. Why? If this is an opportunity to bury, burn, and get rid of Kerry Lake, they would be leading with this. Except they're not. They're leading with Trump getting told that he's got to pay a fine, and Texas being told that they're not allowed to put up barbed wire. That's what they're running on.
Well,
I know Voss won't be surprised about this. But does anyone else find it ironic that the only mainstream media that picked up the Kerry Lake story was a UK paper, the Daily Mail?
Yeah, wasn't it? They were the
how many other people received this tape from our own media?
I've
and
actually
didn't
seen
run
it
it?
in several other sources.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
That was
I'm-
after. That was after Daily Mail, as if I remember correctly, the Daily Mail UK were the first ones to put it out, and because they're credible, everyone else had to then follow suit and do a follow up. And other than local news, the national, international news had to do some kind of coverage on it. But their coverage has been sparse.
No, I didn't mean that wasn't sparse.
Yeah.
I just replied that, yeah, I have seen it in other, and
No,
I
you're
don't
right.
know for sure when those others came out or any of that. But it has been reported in other locations. But like I said, there's not a lot of detail. There's not, most of it is just over the fact that that guy basically resigned. Okay. And that does say something. If somebody that's that high up in the GOP party in the state of Texas is resigning because of this, there's got to be some more stuff in it.
Yeah, it scares me. And again, the public should know more of the details because this is about an election. These are people who may be they may be in elected office or denied elected office. Either way, win or lose, they may get or lose an elected office purely because the public wasn't told enough about the circumstances that's happening in the background, because it's politics, because people are playing politics. The public isn't getting information. That's the worst reason.
Well, it's also look, it's also a tremendous insult to the American people when you have every one of us, when we were in school, were all told by one teacher at one point or another, any one of you could grow up to be president of the United States. There's nothing you can't do. You can do this. You can do it. We were all told that we have inside of us this unlimited amount of potential, and that if we know how to do it, and we're thirsty enough and we work hard enough, that we can become anything we want to be. What this situation shows us is that how much bullshit that is, because you can want to represent your community. You can need to represent your community. Your community might need you to represent them. You have the solutions for them. But if your party doesn't approve of you, if people who don't live in your community don't like you or don't like your message, don't like your haircut, don't like the way you dress, they don't like the way you speak, if there's anything that they don't like about you, that you don't fit the mold that they want to portray, they will stop you. Not the voter, not you, not if you screw things up or you don't run a good race, that the party decides that they want you or not. And that is not the American way. That is not the way that any of us were taught, that we all have to bow down, kiss the ring, and capitulate to a bunch of bureaucratic, unelected officials who are all sitting there running around the same pot of money, trying to figure out how to grow the money for them and how to screw the people.
Well,
That's why we don't have good representatives in this country, Vas. Vas, this is why you got chased around and thrown around the way you did. You knew damn well that you could have better represented the people up there in your county than anybody else that was up there. And you know the machine that you were up against. The machine is the problem in this country. It's the friggin' machine. And between the machine holding hands with the corporations and holding hands with the courts, they're in control of it, and it's all a big game, and none of us are invited to it. None of us are invited to it. And when one of us has the chutzpah, the balls enough to say, you know what? I'm going to listen to those guys over there on the Liberty First Foundation, and I'm going to do something at the local level. And you decide you want to run for school board, and you get a visit by people you don't know. You want to run for your county mayor, and you get a visit from people that you don't know, and you get threats, and you get that. It starts at every level. that smallest in most minuscule level it starts at, that even this a show with 4 or 5 occasional people that comes up once a week, we get shut down because we talk about things that they don't want to hear and they don't want to let the public hear about. We get shut down.
Yeah.
So I don't trust. Oh, well, this person said that and this one, and then listen, show me the frigging evidence and show me where the evidence came from, because it is so ridiculous now that you can't even run for the simplest of office unless you get somebody else's approval to do it. That is not the America that I was told I was going to grow up in, and it sure as hell isn't the one that I want our grandkids growing up in.
Speaking of elections,
yeah, I was going to say,
Democrats aren't done trying to remove people off the ballot. Did any of you hear what's going on with Vong in California?
no. I know that. Wait, is that city
Or
council?
Fong is currently a sitting
16,
assembly member. He's on the ballot for the Bakersfield Assembly. He's also running for U.S. representative to replace the representative from his district. California is trying to remove him from the ballot altogether, saying that he's ineligible to run in both elections, essentially. Okay, and basically they're saying that because he was already on the ballot to run for the 32nd Assembly District, that he is not allowed to be on the ballot for the U.S. House. And there's been a couple court rulings on it, or actually a court ruling that has basically said that he gets to remain on the ballot. Secretary of State is appealing that decision and is still in the process of trying to remove him from the ballot for the U.S. House.
Well, do you know if there's anywhere in the California laws of being on the ballot it states that he can't run for both offices?
There's nothing. But if he is elected to the House of Representatives, that is the only office he can hold while he is a U.S. representative.
Right. He would have to resign, but as far as I know, there's nothing that says you can't have multiple simultaneous races.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
their argument is that it disenfranchises voters because if they want him as an assemblyman, but not U.S. representative, and there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but that argument can be made about how many times, like as an example, Kirsten Gillibrand was senator. She got elected. Literally had November. She gets elected and reelected into the New York State Senate. Turns around, walks out after telling the American people, the New York State residents, that she would not seek the presidency. This was in 2016. She goes, I'm not going to seek it was 2020, in fact. She goes, I'm not going to run for president because I just got elected as senator. I want to be a senator. And literally the next month, she turns around and she's running for president. Didn't last long, but she was doing it. You have right now Adam Schiff of California in San Francisco, 25, looking to take over
the Senate
Dianne
seat.
Feinstein's Senate seat. He's a sitting member of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they saying?
Biden was a sitting member of the Senate when he was asked to be vice president.
Right.
Right. So, and that's common. Well, Sheila Jackson Lee just ran for mayor while she's simultaneously on the ballot for the next congressional hearing, next congressional election. They do this double dipping crap all the time. See, my problem is I don't have a problem with a politician running for re-election. If you're a senator running for senator, you get to run for senator. My problem is that when you hold one office and then you spend half of your time, running for a higher office, well, nobody's doing your friggin' job while you're running for a higher office. You should be mandated to say, okay, listen, you're a senator, you want to run for president, you have to voluntarily resign from your commission and have your governor appoint somebody to fill your stead and fill your job. If you're going to look for, because if I was, if I'm working at General Electric and I'm, handing out my resume to Sony and telling the people at GE, hey, I'm looking for another job over at Sony, I'm going to pretty much expect to be fired. If they know that I'm looking to move on and move up. I think the same should apply for politicians. You want the next office up? You're going to spend the next 2 years campaigning for it? Resign.
Yeah.
Resign. If you think you got a chance at doing it, you got a chance. That's your passion. That's your goal. Resign and let somebody represent your constituency the proper way. Don't do it with this half-ass bullshit like, oh, well, I could always just stay a senator. I could always just stay a congressperson.
That was the big debate in
That's typically
Florida.
what happens when these politicians run for a higher office. They still hold on to their seat until they are actually elected. And
Right,
then
and
once they're elected, then they resign their seat in order to take the higher seat.
Right, and that shit's wrong.
Yeah,
that was the big debate in Florida when they were trying to change the state legislation to allow DeSantis to campaign as president while still remaining governor of Florida. And there was a lot of pushback from Floridians that they're like, we want our governor. We don't want a presidential candidate. But somehow the state legislation passed the bill to allow DeSantis to both campaign as president and remain governor. And we saw how that worked out. His campaign was damaged because of various circumstances. But then at the same time, his constituents in Florida did not get the governor that they wanted because while he was out campaigning, stuff was burning at home.
You can't do both of these. These are supposed to be full-time jobs that require your full attention to do them well, to be effective and efficient. God knows how many times have I always said, we need effective and efficient people in elected office. You can't be effective and efficient if you are running around going, hang on, I've got to do this rally so that I can raise up enough money so that I can put out an ad to get a different job. Yeah, but there's this 2,000 page, 200 page, 500 page bill that you're supposed to be reading right now, voting on, that's going to affect hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of people. You can't tell me, oh yeah, but I'm going to read that tonight when I get back home from my campaign event.
Right.
Thousands of pages, and you're going to intelligently run through all of that. And
says, read the bill. What's the sense of reading the bill if you need 14 lawyers and 60 interns to tell you what's in it?
Representative Clyburn, I think that was 2016. Excuse me, 2009.
We have to pass a bill in order to know what's in it.
That was John Conyers.
Sorry. Clyburn. Okay.
Nancy Pelosi.
To know what's in it.
We have to pass a bill in order to know what's in it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think take it even one step further. I read years ago that just take a senator, for example, who serves a 6-year term. They only actually work on bills and everything else about a third of their 6 years. The rest of the time they're raising money or they're out campaigning.
Well, everyone in Washington spends 3 hours a day on K Street lobbying over the telephone.
Minimum.
Whether it be congressman, senator, whatever, they spend 3 hours a day. There's a building on K Street that they have. The DNC's got offices on one floor. Republicans got offices on another floor. There's a cafeteria in between them where they do all their backroom deals in between. And they're all required by their party to go there every day, every week. Well, they don't have to go every day, but they have to put in a minimum amount of hours and maintain a certain percentage of fundraising. So to maintain whatever desk they're given, whatever committee assignment, whatever this or that's. The one guy who you see not doing that is well, what the hell is the guy with the curly hair? The
Rand Paul.
no, well, not only Rand Paul.
Thomas
For crying
Massey?
out loud. Yeah,
Thomas
Massey?
Massey.
Thomas Massey.
Mhm.
He's the one he exposed all of that a couple of years ago. He's like, this is our job. This is what you're paying us to represent you. This is what our party is telling to do. And if we don't do what the party says, we are not allowed to represent you unless the party says so, because we have to give the party so much money, so much time
Mhm.
to raise so much money for people that, because they love when they have a race that they lose. They get to raise all kinds of money and put a little bit into a race that they can lose, and then they take the rest of the money and put it into other things. It's all a mess. It's a mess. It's a
It is.
And that's one of the things I've been arguing since we started this roundtable, is the two-party system is destroying the United States.
Yeah, it's too easy for corruption to get in and not correct itself. You can't correct it. You need an outside, which is why you need term limits as well, because it helps to reduce and limit the amount of corruption. Doesn't end it, but that's, we're human beings. We got to realize.
Well, in some ways, and there's been an argument, and we've actually seen this with past presidents because they do have term limits, is that their final term, they go off the rails and think that, well, we're no longer worrying about being reelected, so we can do whatever we want, regardless what people think.
You know what? I'd rather have someone going off the rails in the last year of a term limited period in elected office, where thus and then therefore the news media and the public can have higher scrutiny on those people in their last year, because you're looking for them to do something wrong. You know that this is when they're going to go off the rails. That's if you have an involved media that's actually responsible, you have a voting public that's paying attention, that can limit, but it's way better than the chaos that we have going on right now.
But I've also said we already have term limits, but they have to be enacted at the voter box, and we have too many people that don't do that.
Well, yeah, so which defeats the point. Yes, technically we should have it, because just vote them out. But people have been trained that, there's that name, vote that name, vote straight down the line, party line.
That's the power of
incumbents. And again, that's where I come back with the parties. The two-party system that we currently have is destroying the United States.
All right, so
I'm actually hoping that this no party or whatever the hell they are actually does well in the presidential election.
You talking about the no labels?
Yeah, no labels party.
No labels for their.
I looked into some of these things. When you look into no labels, we're doing this for democracy.
No, they're Democrats.
You have a label. You just don't want to say what it is. Listen, while we're talking about the damage being done by a two-party system, let's talk a minute about damage that's being done by two government system. State government, federal government, and what the hell is happening in Texas?
Yeah, people have been waiting for that one.
Before we get that, I promised this to you guys before the show, and I know that some of our followers and some of our watchers are going to be pissed at me, and honestly, I don't care, because I'm going to call it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Trump has stated a few times that he should receive executive immunity for everything. And I'm sorry. Personally, I don't believe, unless they are actually in the performance of their constitutional duties,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, I could see some immunity. But if they are actually performing the duties of their constitutionally delegated powers, then why would they need any immunity?
You could see that for errors. I mean, there are conversations that could be misconstrued or misrepresented, kind of like the Ukraine conversation with President Trump. Oh, the Ukraine call, which led to a call for impeachment, which was absolutely a fabrication.
Mhm.
Nothing true about that.
But
he was-
again, if they're allowed to be charged, allowed due process to be served, and allow it to be proven whether or not he was within bounds of his powers or if he exceeded those powers. Okay. Honestly, I don't believe there should be any immunity for any political office.
I can see it because people play political games. And because the corruption leads to that. And that is a counter to that corruption. Now, the key words here is in the lawful operation of their responsibilities, of their duty. Anything
But we
beyond
also
that,
got the opposite too, where this immunity is being abused.
well, yeah, we're seeing that with Biden, say with his interactions with Ukraine. Again, going back to Ukraine, Biden with Ukraine. Oh, you're going to stop the investigation on my son, or you don't get $1 billion.
So, abusing immunity to me is far more tragic problem, a far greater problem to the people of the United States than having no immunity.
I don't know.
Okay.
But
Yeah, they may be able to use it for political games, but in the same token, using those political games is going to backfire on them because the opposite party is going to do the same thing.
the Constitution already makes provisions for that, though, through the use of impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors. So if there's a suspected abuse of power, the House's responsibility is to charge, right, make the indictment or make the allegation, do the discovery, perform the impeachment, and then kick it over to the Senate to actually hold a trial. So there is immunity in the sense that while he's in office and enacting the duties of the president, that as long as it's not construed as a high crime or misdemeanor, or even if it is, then what would end up happening is the House would necessarily bring the articles of impeachment to the president, and then they would have to go through the whole due process, which would essentially strip him of that immunity of the office because of the abuse of power.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dow. What we're talking about right now, though, is after someone. This is the context, to put the context in there for people who are watching. It's okay. Now you're no longer in office, and we want to punish you for something. The immunity we're talking about is not just during, but also after your term, so that they can't retroactively go back and say, now that we've recontextualized or we have a new political outlook, we're going to try and punish you for what you did in the past, because now we're claiming that's a crime, or we're making that accusation of guilt and punish you retroactively for it, which is what we're seeing very much with Trump right now. And this is now a precedent. Every president going forward is going to be treated this way. This is the precedent has now been made. It will happen to Biden. It will happen to whoever wins in 2024, whoever wins in 2028. Forever now, every president is going to have to look after they get out and have a legal team to deal with the after effect. And that's what this immunity is really trying to protect them against, which shouldn't exist because, again, if you did your job when you were in, if you were lawful while in office, this is just a joke. It should never even be a question.
Well, if there wasn't, that's what I mean, is if there even was a question, you wouldn't be able to bring any sort of criminal charges because it was not performed during the impeachment. Now, this hinges entirely on the three branches working as they were intended. And I do not believe that the three branches are working as they are intended.
True enough there.
Executive, legislative, and the judicial branch are not working as they were intended by the founders, because you have too much corruption blending between the federal government. And it also works on the state level as well. The state judiciary, the state legislature, the state executive offices have all consolidated so much and interwoven themselves together that they are essentially acting as single units. Because if you have a house that has a complete majority of your party and your executive is from your party and the predominance of the judiciary is from your party, then of course they're all going to share a sort of hegemonic value system that's going to reinforce one another, and you may not ever see true justice from it. But if it was working as intended, and the president, say, committed high crimes and misdemeanors while he was in office, and then he was impeached for it, but say he wasn't convicted in the Senate, right?
Mhm.
Later on, you come to unearth evidence afterwards of high crimes and misdemeanors, right? You may not be able to charge him as he was president, but there should be a mode or due process that allows you to, at least on a civil level,
Actually,
I don't agree.
the Constitution's actually pretty clear on this. Okay. In Article 1, Section 6. Okay, let me share this real quick. Article 1, Section 6 actually goes in detail on this. Okay, and it states how this immunity is actually supposed to work. Okay, senators and representatives shall receive compensation for their services to be ascertained by law and to be paid out of the Treasury of the United States. They shall, in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses and in going to and returning from same. And for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place.
Okay.
Okay. So what that's telling me is they're not subject to arrest
After the
while they are in session, except for these particular things: treason, felony, and breach of peace. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're immune. It doesn't mean that they can't be charged. It just means that they can't actually be arrested while they are in attendance in a session of their respective houses. Okay, it doesn't mean that they get immunity.
I see that. Yeah. With the exceptions of treason, felony, or the breach of the peace.
Right. And in those cases, because those are such serious factors, then they are subject to immediate arrest, even if they are in session.
Mm-hmm.
Right. High crime misdemeanor.
Right.
Okay, now I'm going to go down to Article 2. And if I remember right, there's nothing in Article 2 that gives the president any sort of immunity.
No, but that's because no one's ever questioned after the fact attacking a president for what they did in office, because it's never been a political tool before. It will be going forward, but it's never been in the past.
Actually, that would make a lot of sense if they were making the argument to try and get him after the fact, get any president after the fact, would be that they'd have to prove treason, felony, or breach of the peace. And if you look at what happened in the events surrounding January 6th, where they tried really hard to show that Trump was somehow involved in the breach of the peace, that would be a crime high enough for them to get him after the fact,
Well,
or
they
even
are
during,
doing-
or
they
even
are
during.
doing that right now with the RICO in Georgia.
Well,
Right.
there's Georgia,
And-
there's
and
Colorado,
here's-
and Maine.
Here's why Trump is wanting this immunity. Okay, is he is getting attacked from every side.
Mhm.
Okay, and he's getting attacked civilly. Okay, look at the case that just ended, where he's got to pay 83 point some odd $1 million.
Yeah.
Um,
For a default judgment. That's that's something that most people don't hear about when the you're doom scrolling through Twitter or whatever. You see that they're like, oh, he was convicted of being a rapist and now and defaming this lady, and now look at the damages that have been awarded. It must be true. What they don't say is that no, he was rendered under a default judgment because the judge didn't want to hear anything from Trump's defense, and so he just rendered a judgment.
and
There
right
wasn't
there
even a jury of peers.
violates due process.
Yes.
Right.
That is a complete violation of due process. I don't care if the judge doesn't want to hear it or not. Okay. Everyone, whether it's a civil trial or whether it's a criminal trial, everyone has the right to present their defense against the charges that are levied against them.
It's the same
when
thing that
a
happened to
judge
Alex
goes
Jones.
out of his way to say, no, you don't. Okay, that right there is immediate grounds for an appeal to overturn that sentence, whatever its sentence is.
Well, and I just read on that she worked with the New York legislators to pass a law to extend the time you can sue somebody.
She who?
Yeah,
Carol,
Jean Carroll.
Jean Carroll.
which
Okay.
should be illegal for her to then sue because she worked with the legislator to get it passed so she could do this.
And then right there, that's
Entrapment.
no, not entrapment.
Conflict of interest.
Definitely conflict of interest.
It's not even that. I'm drawing a complete blank right now. Sorry, folks.
To that point though, the reason that was extended actually was for Cuomo. The New York State legislature under after Cuomo was booted, Hochul actually went through with a whole process of extending the statute of limitations so that more people could come out for 1 year. I believe it was 1 year. They had an extension where they could come out with accusations and then they would be heard by the courts. So E. Carroll took that opportunity to put out this story about Trump in the wherever, the bordello or whatever. And that's where this came from. She took advantage of that legislation that was put out by Albany so that she could bring a case against Trump.
I guarantee you that was passed in Albany, not because they wanted to hear more voices against Cuomo, because it gave them an opportunity to go after Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you when she was talking with them, it's like, do the extension. Doesn't matter. We're burying everything about Cuomo anyway. No one cares. That's going to be dead in 3 weeks. We need Trump. He's coming back in 2024. This is my way to get him. And I guarantee you that was their inside baseball conversation.
And I think one of the biggest things to point out about this whole case, because now he's had 2 judgments on him with her, is that he has never been convicted of rape.
Right.
No. And he's never been charged with it.
But that won't stop the media from trying. Again, this is about impressions. It's all about feelings. There are very few facts that they're trying to push right now. It's all about feelings. Don't you feel good about the economy? That's absolutely, yes, the economy is horrible, but do you feel good about it? Yes, the world is destabilizing, but do you feel good about it? Yes, we're having massive waves of illegal aliens entering our nation, but do you feel good about it? Yes, we're increasing and we're bringing back segregation, but do you feel good about it? Do you notice that's the logic that is being presented right now on pretty much name the issue, and I can point to here's the media saying you should feel good about this really bad outcome, and by the way, reelect the people that created this scenario. And I know that's kind of what Frank was talking about. We were going to talk about Texas, and that's the same scenario there. Oh, you should, yes, there are what 8 million illegal aliens since 2021 have entered into America. We have seen Boston, Chicago, New York vocally,
LA.
repeatedly for years, LA mention that they are bankrupt. They're bankrupting
San Francisco.
even more than they've already been bankrupt. We are destroying the infrastructure of these major cities in America because of the inflow of illegal aliens, because of an open border. Kamala Harris has completely failed there's no way you can look at her job as southern borders are and find it as being a passing grade, just not possible. And yet you're told, but you should feel good about it. Because we're helping these people. Don't you want to help people? We are obligated to help these people. I don't know why I'm obligated to help them. We didn't invite them. We didn't tell them to come here. We didn't promise them that we would take care of them. That's not our job. None of that has to do with us. And by the way, it's child abuse.
Biden's finally admitting that there is a problem at our southern border. And in a statement that he released January 26th.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank. I know you've been waiting.
Vass, I have to keep reminding you that she did not fail her job at the border. Her job has been done to the letter, to the plan, 100%. She's got a passing grade. She got an A++.
And completely flubbing.
That was her job.
Well, and now she's going.
That was the mission.
Now she's going state by state, telling everybody that the way to fix our immigration issue is to give them all citizenship.
That was the job. You realize at this point right now, in a country with 330 million people in it, 10% of the population of the United States currently right now does not belong in this country. 10%.
Yeah, why are we counting them? They don't count. They're not American citizens.
It doesn't. No, we see according to the census, it doesn't talk about citizenship. It talks about persons. Yep. Persons here. And when you have 330 million people, 30 million of which are illegal aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Except the census in the Constitution does talk about citizens.
Yes.
But with the Constitution, that's not politically expedient.
Yes, but wasn't it Obama who took the U.S. citizenship off the census?
He took the question off, and Biden changed, and it was Biden who changed the way we count. So even with Obama, even though the question wasn't there, we didn't count anyone we knew was illegal. When under Obama, we knew that we couldn't ask them if they were illegal, but if we knew, we couldn't count them. Biden changed that rule and said, no. If you're illegal, we still count you. It is the only reason that New York State did not lose 3 members of Congress and instead only lost 1, just almost made 2, and why most of the bluer than blue progressive states were able to maintain their numbers. It was because they counted the illegal aliens, even though citizens left those states in droves. That's why they changed it.
So that
Marshall, get back to this the statement.
Okay, so Biden has finally admitted, yes, we do have a crisis at our border. January 26th, he released a statement. For too long, we all know the border's been broken. It's long past time to fix it. That's why 2 months ago, I instructed my team to begin negotiations with a bipartisan group of senators to seriously and finally address the border crisis. For weeks now, that's what they've done, working around the clock through the holidays and over the weekends. Let's be clear. What's been negotiated would, if passed into law, be the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border we've ever had in our country.
Lie.
It will give me, as president, new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed.
Lie.
And if given that authority, I would use it the day I sign the bill into law.
Lie.
Further, Congress needs to finally provide the funding I requested in October to secure the border. This includes an additional 1,300 Border Patrol agents, 375 immigration judges, 1,600 asylum officers, and over 100 cutting-edge inspection machines to help detect and stop fentanyl at our southwest border. Securing the border through these negotiations is a win for America. For everyone who's demanding tougher border control, this is the way to do it. If you're serious about border crisis, pass this bipartisan bill, and I will sign it.
See, every fucking thing that's in that letter is bullshit from the day one, because here's the bottom line of it. The very first thing that this piece of shit did was start dismantling the wall.
Yes.
He started moving he could have said, we're going to keep the border at its current status. We're going to maintain the security. We're going to stem the flow of everything. And I would like to therefore then negotiate to strengthen the position that we're in now. But no, what did he do? He walked up to the person, slit the throat, let them started bleeding out. And then he's holding the person hostage saying, well, you got to do this and you got to do that, or you're letting the person bleed to death. He inflicted the damage to this situation. He himself, that Mayorgas piece of crap, knee pads the vice president. They're the ones that inflicted all of this on the people of this country. They did the damage, and then they turn around and say it's Republicans' fault because they don't want to negotiate with us. You don't do the damage and then look for negotiation if you're doing it in good faith. This border under Trump was the most secure it had been in generations. No, was it perfect? No, because we were still battling the courts about, well, this part of the fence is going to cross where this bird needs to fly, and this fish needs to swim here, and this, that, and everything else. You know, the courts are putting stops as we're fighting all of that. There was all other means that we could use to protect the border. But everyone's forgetting this piece of crap president sold how many hundreds of miles of the materials for the border wall? He sold hundreds of miles of border wall materials for pennies on the dollar or what the Americans paid for it. Why? So they could make room for more camps, more tent camps for the asylum seekers.
And welded gates open. Welded the gates open in Lukeville.
Weld them open, get rid of the guards. Oh, we've deported more people. No. People, you have to understand the difference between being deported and actually being escorted out of the nation. You see, I have deported people physically. Part of my old job was taking somebody who had to be deported and removing them from the country, bringing them to their land of origin and saying, here you go, that's where you belong. Being deported doesn't mean you leave. Being deported means a judge sits there and stamps a name on a thing that says, okay, this person is deported. Now they got 60 days to self-deport. To leave. They give them 60 days to leave. You know how many of the people that get deported leave? Nobody friggin' leaves. So they can deport 30 million of them. It doesn't mean that not one of them goes back. Doesn't mean one of them goes back. How many have been physically removed, returned to the place of their origin? None. That's how many. How many Americans have died at the hands of illegals since this piece of shit took office? Thousands.
That have been, and how many of those have been multiply deported?
And
I
then
think
he's going to hold us hostage by saying, oh, the Republicans they don't want to cooperate with us. No, you're trying to kill the country. Let's not forget that the only reason they want these people here is because they want to pass a law that gives them blanket amnesty for 30 plus million people, giving them blanket amnesty that maintains them at the lowest end of the poverty scale, that puts them on welfare, that gives them on food stamps, that puts them on everything else, that makes them beholden to government, so the Democrats can turn around and say, we're the ones that gave you that. Now we need you to return the favor and vote for us. This is a voting scam. That's all it ever has been, to try and maintain as much power as possible so that they could kill America and turn it into a socialist nation. They don't care about this country. This is a purposeful attempt at destroying the country to do what no enemy has been able to do. And why? Because the American people let this happen.
I mean, we
Well,
should
and I
call it for what it is. It's slavery. They're
It's-
reinstituting slavery.
It's treason, is what it is. What's happening on the border with this president and the rest of the administration, this is treason. This is a declaration
Absolutely.
of war on the United States by a president of the United States using a foreign force as the enemy to come in here and overwhelm a system, both economically, bureaucratically, and then take all that and then try to say that they won legitimately because the people that they brought in are the people that they got to vote for them. This is treason, pure and simple.
Well, I think something that people really need to take away from that statement that Michael just read is he's saying, give me the authority. That's what Congress is for. Congress is there to pass the laws. Biden, again, is proving that he wants to be king. If it's the way he wants it and what he wants, he's going to make his executive order and bypass any and everything our Constitution stands for. Like the fight going on in Texas right now. You will remove these razor wires. You will remove this stuff because I said so.
Something I think that a lot of people misunderstand about the Constitution, because they only have a cursory knowledge of it, is the fact that the Constitution itself is the law. It's the supreme law of the land, and the government is subject to it, not the other way around. Most people look at the Constitution, and if they have a cursory knowledge, they make the mistake that the government made the Constitution. That's not correct. The Constitution made the government.
Right.
So when you appeal to the Constitution, it is above the government. It is what created the government. It is its creator, and therefore is subject to it. So when Texas appeals to the Constitution that this is the right way to go about doing business because the federal government has abdicated its responsibilities, then they are appealing to an authority higher than the federal government, which is the way it's supposed to be. And the federal government is the one that's saying, no, we are not subject to that which created us. We are the progenitors, not the other way around. And that's wrong. That is treason. Definitely.
Okay. So this is going on in X verse. Okay, or the Twitterverse. Courtney McKee for Arkansas. So evidently somebody's running public policy, nonprofit, vegetarian mom, wife, Phillipscom, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So she says, dear Constitution experts, federal law supersedes state law. So yes, Texas does in fact have to obey. No.
Nope.
She is wrong.
Yep.
Okay.
Wrong.
And point blank, this was decided very early in our history. The second Chief Supreme Court Justice or Chief Justice of the Supreme Court ruled in Marbury v. Madison that any law, regardless of whether it's federal, state, or local, that is repugnant to the Constitution is in fact null and void.
Yep.
Okay. So this woman, Courtney McKee, goes on later and says the argument has been made in SCOTUS. They sided with the federal government, or haven't you heard? Okay. And that is not entirely true either. So the Supreme Court said, court allows Border Patrol to cut Texas razor wire along the Rio Grande.
Mhm.
Okay. They did not side with the federal agencies. What they said is that in order to do their job, yes, they may cut razor wire that has been erected at the southern border, but it does not say that the state of Texas must refrain from installing razor wire at the southern border.
Yeah,
Okay. And this is an ongoing case. And while it's in process, the Supreme Court said, yes, Border Patrol agents, in order to be able to do the job that is currently purview of your designation by law, you are allowed to cut this razor wire. Okay.
Question.
February 12th, I believe is what.
Mike, before you go further, Jen, you said you had a question?
I have a question. I read that when Abbott put out one of his statements in the last few days, that he stated that the treaty that Texas made with the United States when they became part of the Union, that the U.S. government has violated it, the treaty, with what they're doing down there regarding the cease and desist of protecting the border.
I didn't hear that, but it is my understanding that once Texas entered the Union, then they became a state and they became subject to the Constitution like every other state. Regardless of the treaty only applies to a separate entity while it's a separate entity. Once they became part of the Union, the treaty no longer applied because it's null and void. That entity that made the treaty, the independent Texas state, government or nation at that point, no longer exists. There's now just Texas.
So I'm wondering why he would make that part of his statement.
I'm not sure they did. I didn't see that. Now, I'm not saying that I may have missed it.
The thing that he's alluding to is actually part of the Texas Constitution, and there were guarantees that were made during that treaty that if Texas was to join as a state and the federal government and they were to come underneath the Constitution, the federal government was required to uphold the international border that ran along the southern part of Texas. And the moment that the federal government was to abdicate that position, if for some reason it failed, Texas was to be able to reinforce their own southern border.
Okay, so that would be as a matter of their state. If that's a part of their state constitution, it's also part of the Constitution, and it's covered by Article 1, Section 10, which I'm sure we're going to get to. So there's some questions there, but Mike, go ahead, go on, unless you want to correct me on.
Okay, the case that all this is stemming from actually hasn't been heard. It's scheduled for oral argument on February 7th. Okay, and basically the Biden administration is trying to claim that the state of Texas is violating federal law by not allowing border agents to do their job in patrolling and securing the southern border. Texas's argument is that federal agents have not been allowed to do their job and are failing to do their job, and that it is under the 10th Amendment and under Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution that Texas has the right of self-defense. And that they are actually being invaded. And because they are being invaded, they are allowed under that authority to protect their borders. And that's their argument. Okay.
Well, I know
and there's an argument on the federal government side that the razor wire is preventing the Border Patrol from being able to do its job and to act in cases of emergency where human life is at risk because they can't, because of the amount of time it takes to cut the razor wire makes it difficult for them to respond to an individual that say may be drowning in the Rio Grande.
But at the same time, I think it needs to be brought up that the Border Patrol isn't doing the job that they were sworn under oath to uphold because the Biden administration has told them, let these people in.
Well, I think part of the question, the initial question, there's two things that need to be very clearly defined. One, what is an invasion? And if we look at the actual Oxford Dictionary description of what is an invasion, the second and third meanings of the word invasion are exactly what's happening in Texas right now. So that does validate and does conform with the 10th Amendment and Article 1, Section 10 for Texas, that they are being invaded and they have the right by Constitution and the amendments to defend their border. The second thing that we need to define is what is the job of the border agents or the federal government, even more directly with the federal government. Is it their job to help people break United States law? Coming into the United States without authorization is a crime. Point blank, full stop. Don't care about anyone's feelings. That's a crime. Border agents helping people come into the United States, whether that means you're letting them across the border, putting them into a camp, sending them to a city, putting them in a hotel, giving their kid, putting them into schools and hotels and hospitals. That's aiding and abetting a crime. The initial crime is entering the United States without authorization. Is that the job of the border agents and therefore the federal government? Do we have an obligation? And they will say, well, they were going to drown, so we had to go and get them. There is nothing, no law, no constitution that I am aware of, nothing that says, oh, you're drowning because of your own actions in trying to commit a crime. We are obligated, therefore, to save your life. There is nothing that says that. That's not true.
Haven't the courts already ruled that law enforcement has no distinct responsibility to protect you?
Yes. They
That's
have.
correct.
The courts
All right,
have.
so how
definitively said
different
so.
is it that the law enforcement agency that is supposed to police our border has any duty to save or rescue anybody else?
They
Why
don't.
do they have the responsibility to do that? But my local law enforcement guy, he don't have the responsibility of protecting me if I'm at gunpoint or at knife
Now,
point.
to do another thing on your thing here, Frank, and to interject on this, why can't they just return them to the other side of the river after they're saved?
Yeah. How about throw them a rope, and then on at the other end of the rope is a hook, and you fling the rope across the friggin' river and say, "Pull yourself back, asshole."
No, yeah. I mean, that's another way. That's assuming that we are obligated to save them in the first place. If you want to say, and if that is the argument, and that's a moral, not a legal argument that they're making. Morally, we should save their lives. Okay, morally, I understand that. That's not legal. There's a big difference. There is no actual obligation legally for us to do this. But if we do this, there is no follow-up, no consequential requirement or obligation that once we've saved you, open up the doors, send them over to Chicago. There is nothing that mandates that. There is no obligation beyond we morally, we did the right thing. We saved you. Go back to your country. Go back and get in line. There is nothing that allows you to cut the corner just because you decided to put your own life at risk. You're a dumbass. Get at the back of the line. Sorry.
Vass, you grew up in New York City just like I did. You've been to the beach.
Yeah.
You've been to the beach. You've been to Reese. You've been to Breezy. You've been to Manhattan Beach. You've been there in October, right?
Yeah.
You've been to the beach in October. You go down to Coney Island, go down to Nathan's, go get yourself a freaking hot dog, walk along the boardwalk down there, take a stroll down the sand with your girl, and you see a sign right like that by the lifeguard's tower. As a warning, no lifeguard on duty, swim at your own risk. This is a public waterway. It's the border of the United States. The beaches of New York are the border, which you never see Border Patrol agents there.
No, never.
No, you see lifeguards there. We don't pay the lifeguards in the fall, the winter, or the spring. Only during the summer do the lifeguards get paid. Go to any public pool after hours. Go to a public pool after 6 p.m. in the United States anywhere where they have, you'll see that exact sign right there. Why are we providing the services to people at the border that we're not supplying the services to the residents of our nation? At our public beaches, at our public pools, at our public rivers, in our national parks, in our state parks, on federal land. I don't know about you, but I don't know how many lifeguards they got patrolling the Colorado River if everybody goes down there whitewater rafting.
The whole
stuff
point,
like that. But why are we saving people's lives at the border when we're not saving American lives? Why? Because American lives don't friggin' matter.
well, yeah.
American lives don't matter because we're already registered voters. They only want to protect the incoming voters that they can register.
It's about, again, it's the confusion of what is legally obligated and necessary and to the good of the nation versus what they want you to feel morally.
Those
is an obligation.
bullies, they're forcing people to drown. No, these people are drowning because they're throwing themselves in a friggin' river, crossing it illegally. It's their responsibility. They made the choice to make that journey. They make the choice to cross that border. The risk is on them. They made that choice before they stepped foot on American soil. And in fact, they're not even on American soil by the time they're drowning. They're in an international waterway. Frig them. I hate to sound that way because I don't want nobody to die. I really don't. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to prosper and be wealthy and happy and healthy. I want nothing but the best for people. But I'm getting sick and tired of hearing my country getting overrun, getting overtaken. And it's our responsibility to take care of everybody else for their poor decision making. While our government makes the poor decision to let tens of thousands of tons of fentanyl into the country, to let other people make poor decisions and so they could die.
And there's human trafficking as well. But here's the thing.
Yeah, those kids don't have a choice in the matter. The federal government is responsible for little boys and little girls every day in the United States getting raped, murdered, and thrown into a ditch. Raped and murdered. Little children every day are being trafficked, being tortured, being raped, being punished in the most heinous ways you could possibly imagine. And our federal government does nothing because all they care about is trying to register votes.
I understand. And here's the logic. Here's the real thing. If you want to be morally if they want to make this a moral argument, and we'll get into the 25 states in just 1 second, because the answer should be that if we protect the border, they won't have a reason to try and kill themselves trying to swim over a buoy or try and climb through razor wire. They know it's there. They won't do that. Therefore, they won't kill themselves. And therefore, we are relieved of the responsibility, the moral obligation, moral, not legal, to save their life. We already
And
did.
that is the argument that Texas is making, that is, if we make it so that it is impossible for them to cross the border at that point, then there is no need of patrolling that area, because you won't have people trying to cross in that area, therefore endangering their lives.
Instead, they'll use the other 28 points of entry that are proper to be used.
And
that's the other point that Texas was trying to make, is that they're trying to say their counter argument is the federal government, by opening up all these extra spaces along the borderline, are detracting from the actual entry points that are safe to use, and there's 28 of them all along the border where people can funnel in. The problem is that if you put them through those 28 different ports of entry, then they have to try and come in legally as opposed to illegally. And with the Border Patrol reopening all of those sections that are being blocked off, they like the federal government are facilitating and breaking the law with human trafficking and all the rest of the problems that we're seeing coming across the southern border. And it's not just Mexicans, it's Chinese, it's Arabs, it's people from Angola, Nigeria.
It's got nothing to do with Mexicans. This isn't about people's skin color or
and actually a good majority of the people that are doing these illegal crossings and then all of a sudden trying to claim asylum are actually legally claiming asylum because they did not request asylum in their first country of safety.
We just had a guy 2 days ago. 2 days ago, the media caught this guy. The media caught him. Breitbart was able to identify him. This is a Saudi guy, who just spent 12 years in prison for terrorist activities, crossed the border from Mexico into Texas the other day, was escorted across the border by our Border Patrol agents, didn't have to give no name, didn't have to give no identification, but they used some facial recognition software to find this guy's picture and find out his criminal history. He was released from prison a month ago.
Yeah.
A month ago in the Middle East. He's crossing the border from Mexico to this week. And when they ask him who he is, he says, "Oh, don't worry. You'll find out who I am very soon."
Yeah. This is part of that. This is why we had 172 known and suspected terrorists enter the United States last year. And the Mayorkas, while speaking to Congress at a congressional hearing, could not say where they were. And when he was asked by Representative Darrell Issa directly on this, that was in May, I believe it was May 31st, 2023, in case anyone wants to fact check me. And this is why, as Mike is showing, why 25 states, half the nation, there is 26 states who are saying we need to protect our borders because that protects the integrity of our nation, our infrastructure, our citizens. This action by the Biden administration on a false moral obligation is endangering people. This is the exact opposite of what the executive branch is supposed to be doing, and that's why they're trying to help. And Biden is forcing America into this political and well, it's more than just political division that he is making in this nation. And it's really sad, but it won't be a civil war, but it is definitely going to be an explosion, a sea change in our nation going forward.
Oh, they're pushing.
I want to bring up something else along with this. Okay. Since 2021, 2022, the various Border Patrol whistleblower blowers have come forward. Okay. Border Patrol cannot see a path forward under Biden. There is no morale. In other words, they're literally saying we aren't allowed to do our jobs. And that is one of the quickest ways to bust morale in any agency is to literally prevent them from doing the job that they are tasked with doing.
How they demonize them and say that they're whipping people when photos obviously and directly eyewitness reports and photos tell you no, they're not.
Don't believe your own eyes. Don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are. We have a Border Patrol that is demoralized. We've got multiple states, in fact, over half the nation has sided with Texas on this issue. We got a Supreme Court that basically gave the federal government a stay to say, yeah, you can allow border agents to patrol this section. And we have an ongoing court case that is up to the Supreme Court, which is getting ready to hear oral arguments on this matter. And we've got the state of Texas saying, hey, the federal government has failed to protect our borders. So we, under the authority of the Constitution, are stepping forward to do exactly what the Constitution says we can do.
Right.
And that's part in the Constitution. We'll go ahead and read it here real quick, just as soon as I get up to it. Okay, so that part of the Constitution is under Article 1, Section 10. Okay.
Second paragraph.
No state shall okay, so it's clause 3. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay duty of tonnage, keep troops, or ships of war and peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Okay, so that is the clause that Governor Abbott is holding on.
Okay. Before you go further, I want to show people what the definition is of invasion, so we can be very clear what he is talking about, because I don't think most people really have that down. Let me just show that real quick. So when you're looking at this, an incursion of unwanted people, of masses of people entering an area they were not allowed to be in, they weren't asked to be in, that they have violated large numbers, like migrant caravans of 7,000 and 8,000 individuals at a time, millions of people crossing the border. That's by definition, that is an invasion by the definition of the word. So that cannot be confused. And when people say, well, it's not really an invasion. Yes, it is an invasion. The definition is clear, and that absolutely matches what is happening at our border. There is no question about it. You don't have to like it. It doesn't have to feel good. It is empirically correct. So now that we know it is empirically correct to say that there is an invasion, going back to what you were saying, Mike, and going back to Article 1, Section 10, third clause, or otherwise known as third paragraph.
Okay, no state shall without, okay. So, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger, okay. Governor Abbott has raised both issues, okay. First, they are actually being invaded. And second, there is imminent danger. Okay, there are some Republicans that are trying to claim that Texas is only one of the Southwest states that are claiming that they are having this issue.
No, that's not true.
And that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Okay. Now, first off,
Arizona 2014.
well,
now.
I'm getting ready to.
Well, now too, but I mean, it started with Arizona in 2014. Arizona was starting to say that they had too many illegals coming across. It abated, and then after Biden took office, they were starting to do what? Put cargo containers on the border. They were told they couldn't do that.
Yes, they were doing that initially.
Yeah. So I mean, this is not a new issue, and even then, the federal government was not doing their job properly. At least under Trump, they were doing it better. And then when Biden gets in, it's immediately an about face to a level of dereliction that we've never seen. And that dereliction is intentional. It can't be disputed now, because he's had every opportunity for the last 3 years to close that border up and actually make it so that we could reform immigration if he wants to bring these people in. And I would say to your definition, the only pushback I could see against the definition is that they're not authorized to be. Well, Biden authorized them. The federal government authorized those people to come across the border, so they can't be an invasion. And that's what you're going to hear, though that's incorrect, because by doing so, the federal government is abdicating their constitutionally charged duty of protecting the border, and thereby are breaking the supreme law of the land.
That's assuming that Biden even had that power in the first place. But go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So what I got up here now is off of Google Maps, and it shows the border, the southern border, southwestern border that they're talking about. Okay. And there are 3 other states besides Texas that border Mexico. Texas has by far the longest border with the nation of Mexico. Okay, by far. Then possibly Arizona, then New Mexico, and then California, as far as length of border along Mexico. Okay. The Mexican border is the only border that actually has a river. The rest of the borders of the other states are all land-based borders, which are a lot easier to secure. Okay, with walls, etc., or whatever. So the claim that these other states aren't having problems is, number one, a falsehood, because they are. Okay, California's stated that they are having so many quote unquote undocumented entries into the state of California that they can't handle them all. Arizona's stated the same thing, so is New Mexico. Okay, the only one that's actually taken a stand is Texas, because they're doing what they believe is the right thing to do to protect their citizens.
Yeah.
And the fact that the other states aren't doing this shows that they are actually letting their states down. Now, I want to bring up one other thing on this. Governor Abbott is absolutely doing the correct thing. It is his responsibility to protect his constituencies, the citizens of his state.
Yeah, it's an obligation.
Okay. The fact that the governors of New Mexico, Arizona, and California are not doing this speaks volumes. Okay.
Well, you got the governor of California who's giving all the illegals free health care at the cost of the taxpayers.
They are actually not living up to their responsibility of being the watchguard of the federal against the federal government. Okay.
All right. Well, let's remember that the New Mexican governor is more concerned about violating her constituents' Second Amendment rights by suspending the Constitution in her state.
Yeah.
Okay. The Arizona governor, well, we know what she's doing with the property over there, what's going on over there, and we know that Newsom uses this as all to his political advantage. I don't know why. I don't know how he seems to think that this is benefiting him. But the only governor that we have on the southern border is Abbott doing his job. Every one of the ones that's not doing his job all has a big fat D in front of their name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is ideologically driven.
Yes.
Believe me, if they could put what was her name? The former governor of Texas with the white hair, and what was her face? Governor of Texas back in the early 90s.
Oh, you're going back a ways. Yeah,
I don't know.
Ann Davis. Well, so no, well, Ann B. Davis was the lady. Was Alice on the Brady Bunch? She probably would have made a much better governor. She could hold the house together. I'm sure she could do something with the border. But that lady was a Democrat. She would not have stood up with what's going on with this.
Old school Democrats aren't modern Democrats.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and what I was getting at is the governors that are elected, one of their charges is to hold the federal government accountable to the Constitution. Okay, that is the same applies to our state legislatures. Okay, whether it's state assembly, state house, state senate, they have an obligation to hold the federal government accountable to the Constitution. Everybody thinks that it's only the Supreme Court that can weigh in on whether or not the federal government's violating the Constitution, and nothing is further from the truth. Okay, the Supreme Court or the courts are supposed to step in when there is a controversy about the Constitution, but it is their job to determine what's constitutional and what's not. They're only supposed to offer an opinion when there is a controversy involving the Constitution.
And that goes back to the role of the Constitution in the United States governmental system, which is that it is the supreme law of the land, not the other way around.
Right. That is absolutely correct.
Let's just see what the hell is going to happen up in down in Texas in the next couple of weeks, because it's either going to end with a flash in the pan, or it's going to be bad.
It's going to be telling what happens when the court offers its opinion, its actual opinion on this case after they hear oral arguments February 7th.
That means you're not going to hear an answer from them until somewhere around September, October.
Well, I'm just concerned that you have two forces of opposing opinion, or at least whose bosses have opposing opinion, converging on the same point, each with a different task to mission. One is there to keep the border open, one is there to close it. And both of those points are armed. And I'm just afraid of what's going to happen if one guy decides he's got an itchy trigger finger, or somebody does something stupid, somebody steps out of line, a joke is taken the wrong way.
No, that's not going to happen.
No, you know what
the most you'll see is
I'm concerned that it might, because in this world, it don't take much.
It takes more than what we have seen in the United States. If we're not that nation. There isn't that much division yet in this nation. We're getting there. Another generation, absolutely. Nah, maybe even 5 years. But no, not at this moment.
I don't know.
The
We
big
might have.
question is going to be whether or not Joe Biden tries to federalize the National Guard that has been activated. And now that puts the question of who has the ultimate. They'll be battling on who's got the most loyalty. And that will be a new. See, we're going to see this morph. They're not going to answer this question. It's going to, in February, neither side is going to take serious action because the Supreme Court's going to hear it in February. They're going to get a feel for what the Supreme Court's going to be doing based on the questions they're going to ask, which you're going to see it pretty much fall along the political lines that we've seen so far. It'll be 5-3, most likely, maybe 6-3, in the way the conversation is going to go. We're going to get a very clear understanding. And then right about, I'd say, April, you will see this come back as news as we enter into the late spring, getting ready for the summer. It's going to be, the border's going to come back up. It's going to be another big issue. It's going to be on the minds of voters. Primaries are all but done. Biden's going to need a new boost, and he's going to try to
Wheels are going to keep spinning. We're going to keep talking. America's going to keep getting screwed. Next subject. Let's talk about Nikki Haley before we go, because it's getting on 6 minutes after 11. I'd like to wrap things up this evening at some point before the
bell tolls.
So,
go ahead.
All right. So Trump gets what, 56% of the vote in New Hampshire?
Yep.
Something like that, right? Haley comes out with,
I think it was.
Haley comes out with, and they saying that it's not a huge victory for Trump in New Hampshire, even though he got more votes than any politician in New Hampshire has ever gotten for any primary at any time in history. It's
out
not
of Republicans. We better specify that,
because Haley got, what was the vote tally?
49 something.
9 delegates. She got 9 delegates.
No. The percentage wise, she got
43.2.
Okay. And they're saying, she cleaned up, but they're not telling the people that 70% of the people, according to an MSNBC exit poll, 70% of the people that voted for Nikki Haley identified themselves as other than Republicans on the night of the primary. So 70% of the voting tally that she got were not Republicans, but they voted in a Republican primary. They're trying to say that this is not. So when you extrapolate, when you extract her numbers and then extrapolate a real figure, Nikki Haley got 12% of the vote.
Pretty much.
You're talking out of Republicans and Independents, correct?
Yeah,
just 12%.
Just Republicans, because remember, Republican primaries are supposed to only allow Republicans to vote.
But
New Hampshire's special and it has open primaries.
Yeah, it's one of the few open states which allows for manipulation by having voters pick the weakest candidate possible to try and upset the apple cart, which didn't work in this case.
I mean, I like New Hampshire's slogan "Live free or die," but there are some things where
they don't know what the hell "live free or die" means.
Yeah,
not anymore. They don't.
They really ought to limit.
Okay, they're starting to become like Vermont,
which is scary.
New Hampshire's getting ridiculous. Their gun laws are getting out of control up there. It's insane. But now Haley comes out, and everybody in the right wing has been out there saying Haley should just call it a day. Say good game, throw it in behind Trump and everything else. Now, Trump, he's got a little bit of a different position of this. He wants the primaries to continue.
Yes.
Well, it's good for him.
Do you think he wants the primaries to continue because it's a lot more free media coverage that he gets? Yes. Or because he thinks that if he could walk through Nikki Haley, South Carolina, and trounce her in North Carolina, that would cement him as the heir apparent to his own throne that he shouldn't have lost in the first place.
Okay, I jumped ahead on this, but the easy answer is this is free publicity. The longer it goes on, the more free publicity that Trump gets to have. He's already won the nomination. There is no question on that. That's why everyone else has backed out of the race and endorsed him. Nikki Haley is only in this for the same reason that Chris Christie was in. Democrats are funding her to continue to go forward. Mind you, yes, she has a lot of international experience. She is the second best out of all the candidates that were running at any point. She was the second best on international policy, second to whom? Donald Trump, in terms of being effective and being respected around the world. But she's not going anywhere. She's not going to advance. This isn't going to help her in 2028. She's made a mistake. This is bad.
And she's said that she is going to continue because, quote unquote, her numbers keep improving.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, didn't the governor of South Carolina just recently endorse Trump?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he did. He did.
Yeah, no one's. It's over.
This does bode well for Trump in the regard that he can come out of this with a little catchphrase that says, while the Democrats are out there trying to pull people off ballots and tell you who you can't vote for by not even letting somebody run against Joe Biden in their own primary, I'm encouraging people to run against me, and I'm encouraging every state to have a primary, so every voter has the voice in the primary system, because I, unlike the Democrats, believe in the power of the vote. I believe in the power of the people. I want the people's voice to be heard. It's the Democrats who don't want you to vote, not me.
I guarantee you there's going to be a commercial saying exactly that very, very soon coming out. It may not even be by the RNC, but you're going to see that ad coming out from a couple of different sources because it's true. It's factually true.
Nobody loves the votes greater than me. I'm the best vote lover.
I have the voice of the voter. I have the voice of the voter. I love the voter.
And he can factually say that. He does.
The votes are huge.
He's gone through the process. Biden didn't.
No, he didn't. Okay. And there was, even when Biden was primarying in the 2020 election, there was a lot of strange things that went on during that.
Yeah, that's one word for it. There are other words for it.
And they're also trying to downplay Trump's win in Iowa by saying the turnout wasn't that good and so forth and so on. So
they've got to minimize anything he does.
Well, that's it exactly. They are trying to minimize Trump's victories. Okay, is what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, well, the Republicans really don't want Trump.
Well, how strong of a
literally what they're trying to say.
If he didn't win every county in Iowa? There was one county he didn't win. How strong could he possibly be?
Yeah. Again, but think about it, guys. They're not trying to target us, the audience that's watching this program, people who may search this. No, they're looking for low information voters who see a headline on Twitter and think that's a news story. People who listen to the news for 30 seconds and they're going by the summary that was created by the executives at a multi-million-dollar news station that gets its money from election season. They're getting money from the DNC hand over fist. They want this. That's who's giving you your news. They're getting paid to say these things. And they're giving out these 30-second blips that if you don't pay any attention.
Our job to tell the American people what to think.
Welcome to the Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Yeah, they're bringing him back. They're bringing.
Yeah, I know.
Back.
I saw. So you're gonna get your news bites from Comedy Central. Good job,
Rachel Maddow.
Oh God,
I really hate that woman.
Well, listen, I'm gonna let you guys wrap things up.
Before you do that, I have an update. I just wanted to let you guys know. I am about, because I had a few other things going on, so I'm about 3/4 of the way done with the book. I've already started to write my review up. I'm
Ooh,
hoping to get that review to you probably the end of next week, by next weekend, because I have to have somebody look over it and tell me how to correct things and move things around.
well, that'll be Marshall. Marshall is editor of the website.
Well,
you don't want me
that's
editing
fine.
anything.
No, that's fine. But before it's turned over to Michael, I have somebody else that's going to be looking at it who knows a lot about writing too.
Right.
But I just wanted to give you an update because I know she's going to be on in 2 weeks.
Yes,
And
Liz
you got to
Lazarus.
put the review up on the website.
Yeah,
And
also Liz Lazarus is coming in to discuss the book that she sent to Jan, as well as 2 other books. And Liz is an active Second Amendment proponent, and she is a very effective advocate and activist for our behalf. So we're going to be happy to have her here in a couple of weeks to discuss a book and go from there. Right now, she was just at SHOT Show. She was just out at Gunsight Academy the week before SHOT Show. She's been a week out at Gunsight and then a week at SHOT Show. So she's been having the best weeks ever. I'm so upset. I missed SHOT Show this week.
Yeah,
I was supposed to be there, but unfortunately not about that. But listen, I got to run. I have 2 dogs. Both of them are a little under the weather. I have to go maintain a whole bunch of medication and other stuff and keep an eye on them while everybody else is sleeping. So I'm going to bail out a few minutes early. You guys continue on doing what you're doing. I'll catch up with you guys next week. Check out the Range Report YouTube channel. Got a couple of brand new gun reviews up there. Couple good, couple bad, some in between. And you guys be safe and shoot straight. Love you guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I will catch you guys on next Friday.
Night, Frank.
No, Frank.
right.
night, Frank. Okay. So we are getting on to, well, we're about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 16 minutes into the show. There is a ton more that we could talk about. Okay.
There's
like
always more.
UN workers participating in the attack on Israel.
Colombia having a fake news, viral news story about the IDF that never happened. It is debunked.
Yeah.
Yet the public doesn't want to talk about it. News media doesn't want to talk about how it's a fake attack.
And Ben Shapiro as a rap star.
Yeah. that is crazy, but it's such a fun video. I mean,
Finding out that the NSA has been buying up all of our information from sites.
Oh, we've known that for
that.
decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've known that since shortly after 9/11.
As far as the Constitution goes, if people are interested in the audience of learning a little bit more about the situation in Texas, the Federalist 46 through 52, I believe,
Yes.
actually covers scenarios just like what's happening now. Our forefathers during the debates from 1787 to 1788 actually thought this out, and they did a bit of wargaming, hypothetical wargaming, as to what would happen if the states had to take over for the federal dereliction. So if you are,
and actually, that is one of the things that a lot of states, why they were hesitant in the beginning of adopting the Constitution, is because they didn't believe that the federal government was going to be able to protect them.
correct, or their
So
individual rights.
They were hesitant about giving up their means of protection. And that's one of the reasons why it was written into Section 10 of the Article 1.
Right.
It-
So
it-
if you're interested, go ahead and take a look at that, because that'll help give you a little more insight and context into what's going on between the federal government and the states right now.
it's important. People need to see these different. You got to do your homework. You can't just blank trust a news media that has a bias built in, or a administration that has an agenda. You have to, and even if you want to say, well, Texas has an agenda too, fantastic. Even more reason, trust none of them. Find out for yourself. The information, the Constitution's there. The Federalist Papers are there. The documentation is there. Read it for yourself.
And
Well,
honestly,
I wanted to bring something up too. I heard a little bit of
What?
it last night at the GOP thing, and then I went online and looked it up. I know we did a segment on it months ago when they wanted credit cards to be flagged whenever you bought a gun.
Yes.
mhm,
Well, now it's come out that anytime you walk into a sporting goods store, doesn't matter what you buy, you're on a federal watch list now.
yeah,
Really?
well, that's the prevalence of video surveillance across this country. It's becoming more and more common. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, I actually work in this industry. I actually provide systems that provide for video surveillance, so I know a lot of the technologies that are involved with this. A vast majority of video surveillance systems have now gone to the cloud and are not being recorded locally. They are being recorded on cloud servers.
Yeah.
Especially home video surveillance systems like Nest, Ring, and others. These systems that you are buying at your local big box wholesaler like Costco, Sam's Club,
Best Buy.
BJ's.
Yeah.
Those are, and even the ones that you're buying on an Amazon, are typically cloud-based storage. And these cloud-based systems, guess what? The federal government is already accessing this information. They are already, and actually not even just federal government, state governments and state law enforcement or local law enforcement agencies are accessing these videos. Oftentimes without the owner's knowledge or consent.
In fact, if you know the system well enough, the cloud is so unable to be protected that
Mhm.
foreign nationals can even break in, which is
Yes.
one of the reasons why
Yeah.
we have the Hunter laptop documents, because of a backup from the cloud that was retrieved by international hackers and then made public. So
And
anything that's on the cloud, you have to assume is going to be accessible by the public at large.
a lot of these systems are now have facial recognition built into them.
Yes.
Which should
They
never be
have
allowed in this country.
things built in that does license plate recognition,
Vehicle
systems built in
recognition.
that
Yep.
will identify you by the clothing that you are wearing, and various other things.
Well, did you hear the latest on the Ring issue?
No.
Which one?
Amazon, I guess, purchased Ring a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's been several years
Amazon
ago.
came
Yeah.
out the last couple of days and stated that they will no longer turn over anything if the police request a video from somebody's Ring camera. Now,
I bet you they'll buy it though.
we all know that, yes, the police can get a warrant. They can go to the homeowner. But why all of a sudden are they making it tougher to get video footage which supports the
because
criminal.
Amazon got a lot of heat and actually had several lawsuits filed against it
Invasion of
for
privacy.
turning over information from various people's cameras without their consent or knowledge.
Okay.
Invasion of privacy. So they have the argument Amazon invaded people's privacy, violation of their constitutional rights because they didn't consent to anyone sharing that information. And so now they're trying to crack down, back their way out of what they've already been doing. Because what that is a legal admission that they have in the past, at least in some cases, to some degree, they have been giving law enforcement private information
Without
that
any warrants being involved.
without warrants, without consent,
Right.
without
Well, that
notification.
makes sense because
They
the
actually-
that makes sense because the article I read mentioned nothing of that.
They
Yeah, but-
actually had a place that was for law enforcement agencies where law enforcement agencies and Amazon admitted to working with law enforcement agencies in building up a means of communication between Amazon and law enforcement agencies specifically for the access of these video surveillance devices.
But their statement now in saying that we no longer will means that you have been. Just by that statement alone. But it's easier for them to get away with it because people aren't thinking about, well, this is the consequence of a previous action. This isn't new. You've already been doing an action. This is the consequence of it. So people aren't thinking about that. You're not supposed to stop and actually analyze. And this is, obviously this is what we do, right? We analyze, what are they saying? Well, this is the consequence. What was the action? The action was they did give it away.
Mhm.
So it kind of gives you that. And it's kind of like when we think about politics, when we think about Georgia, Fannie, the whole debate debacle there.
It's literally Amazon saying, oops, we got caught.
Yeah.
So now we're going to change our policies because we got caught.
Exactly.
And basically what is even more telling, they've already set up these relationships. They've already set up these liaisons and stuff, which cost Amazon a lot of money. I guarantee they're not going to let those go.
Oh, no. Hell no.
They're still going to be doing this, but it's going to be a lot more hush-hush. That is being done.
Yeah. Well, you got to redefine printing all your user agreements because just like with Amazon going in Siri, there's that. But there's also, the agreements like with Facebook, where if you go deep into the user agreement, they can turn on your phone and record and actually listen to whatever's on your phone, whatever you're saying on your phone, whatever's on the microphone, whatever the video can see. And they will randomly just turn it on and just record. I've
And
caught them
all these
doing it
people
before.
with these infotainment center systems in their vehicles,
Mhm.
guess what? All kinds of information is being stored there.
Yeah. GPS and all the rest.
Okay. We are being so blinded by the convenience of our technology that we're not understanding the true implications of this convenience and what we're actually giving up for it.
That's why they never want people to stop and think. It's always go, 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 go. Get to the next story. Get to the next story. Make the story shorter and shorter. Oh, don't talk about this in an hour. Don't talk about it in half an hour. Don't talk about 15 minutes. 1 minute shorts. Do it in 30 seconds if you can. Shorter, shorter, shorter. Don't think next story, next story. Don't stop. Because if you stop, you caught us. You stopped and you thought about it. Oops, you noticed what we're doing. That's why it's constantly go, go, go.
Peter says your car's going to have a printer in it just to spit out tickets.
Then that's kind of like
Okay.
that movie.
Peter, I don't know if you, in fact, I think we mentioned it on this show in the past. Ford actually has a patent where your vehicle can actually repossess itself.
Jesus.
Shut itself down.
No, not shut itself down.
I know
That's
about
part
shutting
of the
itself down.
process.
Yeah.
It can actually drive itself back to a predetermined location.
Oh, the automated cars. Yeah. Self-drive.
Okay.
Wow.
So if you fail to pay your car payment, first they'll start nagging you. Pay your car payment, pay your car payment, pay your car payment. Then it'll escalate, and every time you go drive its car, it'll start making annoying noises or start making it so that you can't drive as fast as you want. Shut down the infotainment system and various other things just to make it so that it is an annoyance to drive your vehicle. Okay. And then as it continues to escalate until it gets to a certain point, and then at that point, your vehicle will actually drive itself back to a predetermined repossession point where the bank or the lender can actually take possession of that vehicle under a repossession.
So, in other words, just buy used cars.
Old used cars.
Yeah.
The thing for shutting off vehicles, boss, they're still working on that.
I've heard that they have. I recall reading about remote kill switches. They're there. I mean, I know they've done it because they did it in California, the state of California. Remote turned off, or they had Tesla turn off the charging this summer, 2023, summer of 2023. Yes. They turned off the electric vehicles. You couldn't charge your, like, you can plug it in.
Tesla's already got that technology out there.
Yeah.
And it will. There are several different ways. One, if Tesla deems that your car if you have violated the terms of service for your vehicle, it will shut down the ability for your vehicle to supercharge.
Yeah.
If Tesla believes that your vehicle was repaired by a shop that wasn't authorized by Tesla to repair that vehicle, it will shut down supercharging. They can also actually shut down all charging on your vehicle.
Yeah, and that's what they did in the summer of 2023. Because of the brownouts in California.
Mm-hmm. And other things that they can do is one of the things that they are looking at as a means of quote unquote stopping high speed chases is setting these vehicles up with law enforcement kill switches, so to speak. Yeah, where they will actually be able to
all in the name of it's going to be better for you.
All in the name of safety, quote unquote.
Always.
So what you're looking at on the screen that I've shared here is what's called the Liberty phone from Purism. And this is not an endorsement. I just wanted to show you guys this. This is the only 5G phone that's made in America from American parts. The price of privacy is $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's really expensive.
It doesn't, well, compared to an iPhone?
I don't know. I don't buy an iPhone.
Compared to Samsung Galaxy,
yeah,
it's not that expensive.
This particular phone carries a proprietary OS that's based in Linux. It is not Android. It's not Apple. And it basically is completely, it uses 5G networks just like you would any other phone, but it is completely removed from any of Google or Apple. But that's the price of freedom. If you want to have a device that you can use that you don't want to, you don't want to be spied on as easily, this is one of the options that you have left, and it is the only option that's made in the United States without Chinese involvement.
And just because you're connected to a cell phone network, and I don't care who your carrier is, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, or who it is, you're not safe.
No, but
Federal and state agencies both have these dummy cell sites that they can put out that your phone will attach to, and any phones in the area will attach to. Okay. And you will still be able to complete your calls and so forth. But the whole time that you're attached to this device, everything's being recorded and documented. Okay. Every call you make, including voice recordings, are all being cataloged from these devices.
Voice recordings, text, like what do they call it? Text
all your
capture?
Text messages, all your SMS, all your media transfers, everything, all your data, all your phone, everything your phone does is documented by that's bogus cell site.
Yeah.
That's why everything is smart nowadays. That's why they want you to put smart refrigerators in your home. They want you to put smart stoves in your home. They want you to put a smart meter on your house to run your electric so they can shut it off anytime they want.
Oh my God, NICEC's been after me for the last, well, actually they've been calling my wife to set up the appointment to put a smart meter on the house. And I'm looking at it going, no. I'm like, no.
They'll just do it.
Yeah, eventually they will. Yeah, they'll, even if we don't contact them,
because
one day they'll
some
come
of
out
these
to the
smart
house.
meters, all they have to do is pop out the old meter and put in the new one.
Yeah.
There are some
thing that actually documents your kilowatt hours.
Mm.
There are some people that I've heard that they've shut off their power and taken their regular meter off because they refuse to have the smart meter put on. So they're going to put it on any way they can eventually.
Well, see, up to the meter and including the meter is all the power company's property.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And up to that point of where the meter is, that's all classified as right of way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So the power company can go on there, not get charged with trespassing,
and
swap out the meter with or without your consent.
Mm-hmm.
Sad but true.
So you can refuse all you want. It doesn't matter. You don't have like stand up.
Now, interestingly enough, and I checked the NICEC regs for this. If you're in town, you have to be on that utility. But it does not say that if you are taken off that utility by the power company, that you can't have an alternative to run electricity in your home.
Right.
So basically what you would have to do is, if you really didn't want to have to use the smart meter, you would come up with, say, an off-grid system that you could switch over to. Now,
there's
power
multiple off-grid systems that are very effective for home. In fact, I am an advocate of many of them.
The power company will ask you if you have an intention, say if you're updating a service, to include emergency generators or some other power source.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't forbid you to have them.
No, they cannot.
So the smart idea would be to always have a backup, and then if you really feel like sticking it to them, let them shut you off, and then just turn the lights back on.
Mm-hmm. There are multiple ways. Okay, and I am a huge advocate of these for people, and you need to make this decision on your own. You can do solar. Okay. You can do wind. You can do geothermal. or you can do a fossil fuel alternative that will generate power for your residents. Okay. I mean, all of them are very well suited for that. Okay. And they come obviously with various costs, and they all come with their own unique advantages and disadvantages. If you are actually going to go off grid or even have a supplemental backup alternative to the grid, you need to do a combination of multiple sources because none of them are 100% reliable.
Correct.
They will fail. They often do fail. This is why even when governments build up solar panel farms, wind farms, they also have generators that are on 24/7 because they fail, and they will fail. It's part of the calculation. They're going to fail. So they have generators, they still have power plants running at the same time. It's part of that whole mindset. Again, you got to think it through, folks. You got to think it all the way through.
If you want reliable power, you have to have redundancy, period.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got to think it through.
Decentralized redundancy is best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's about 2.5 hours. Actually,
okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I mean, there is a ton more that we could talk about, honestly. And
yeah,
one of the things about it is we are never going to be short of content doing this.
No.
Because our government, I'm going to be point blank about it. Our government's out of control.
It's gone rogue.
Okay, and I keep saying it, and I'm going to say it again. A government of the people, by the people, for the people does not work if the people are not involved.
Correct.
Okay, and being involved means more than going and voting. Okay, voting is a part of it. And voting is, everybody wants to say that voting is a right. No, voting is not a right. Voting is a privilege. Okay, it is a privilege that we are able to self-govern ourselves. And a part of that privilege is the privilege to vote. Now, if you don't want to take advantage of that privilege and you don't want to vote, then you are ignoring your civic responsibility in your own self-governance. Now, if you want to actually become involved in self-governance, governance and stuff, I have up the website for the Liberty First Foundation. Come and become a member. Join the fight. Okay? Become a part of governing yourselves. Okay? We are an advocacy group to get back to our constitutional foundations. And as you heard, I called out Donald J. Trump tonight on this show because I believe he is in his quest to gain immunity for everything. I believe he is actually in violation or advocating for violation of the Constitution. Okay, I don't believe that any of our political members should have any form of immunity. Yeah, do I believe that they shouldn't be arrested while they're actually in session? No, they shouldn't be arrested. But when that session ends, I believe the cops could be standing right there and put the cuffs on right as they exit. Okay, this is what I mean by we need to become involved in our own governance. We need to quit bowing down to the party mentality and start standing up for the citizen mentality, the rights of the people. We were founded on we the people. We weren't founded on the Democrats and Republicans. We weren't founded upon the government. We were founded by we the people. So if you do want to become a member of the Liberty First Foundation, you can do so through our membership drive. Okay, you can find that here. We are working on becoming affiliated with another payment processor other than PayPal. Once we get that enacted, we will let everybody know. But right now, we do go through PayPal to process our payments for this. Okay. It doesn't mean that you still can't become a member or other ways. But for $15 a year, you get access to several things. Okay. And we are going to be working on more things in the coming year that will make this membership even more valuable. Okay. But other than that, one of the biggest ways that you can really help us, besides helping us, our numbers grow through our membership, is by liking, sharing, commenting. Hit that subscribe button. Okay. Hit the bell to get notifications on when we're going live. Those things can help us reach more people. Yeah, the algorithms are set against us. But guess what? There's a hack against the algorithms. It's called the people. Okay? Yeah, the algorithms try to hide us. But if you're sharing it, guess what? The algorithms don't work so well. So help us get the word out. Let your friends know.
Word of mouth advertising is always the best.
Okay?
Always.
Michael, kind of give them background on where they can find you and some of the things that you do.
Well, we're right into season 6 of the Sunday live stream. You can go to No Sound Bites Allowed on any of the social media, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, all that. We're on every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we spend anywhere from 2.5 to 6 hours going over the issues based on what's important to you, reaching out to everyone around the world, taking their chats, their tweets, and sometimes their phone calls, talking about in depth, going into the details about everything and how everything is affecting us and will affect us in the future. It's long form politics, folks, and it's been doing really well. We've been 6 years. This is the seventh year that we've been doing it, and it's going strong. And hopefully, people will check it out. No sound bites allowed. That easy.
Okay, Dal, why don't you go ahead and give your plug?
All right. Dal Grimm from Grim Liberty on Rumble, and it's a brand new channel with the intention of going and doing deep dives into constitutionalism. We're going to be pulling from the documentation of the period directly, as well as trying to give some relevant commentary and tie the history to current events. And we will also be pulling from sources like Hillsdale College and their constitutional courses and things. So if you want to come on over, take a look. Right now, the channel only has these live streams that I'm involved in up on the channel, but soon there will be new content, and hopefully you'll join us for the discussion here as well as there and learn something and become ungovernable so that you may govern yourselves.
Say its name again.
Grim Liberty on Rumble.
And Jan, why don't you go ahead and do your plug?
I just want to say get involved. Continue to follow Liberty First Foundation. Join us. get involved in the conversation. It's important that our voices are out there. Follow Mr. Boss. He really does good deep dives
Absolutely.
and has very good knowledge on the subjects he talks about. Doll, I'm going to have to check you out. Thanks
Soon.
for plugging yourself. And on my end, I mentioned it to the guys before we started the show. I have acquired somebody who was persecuted under the January 6th insurrection, who has said that, yes, he would come on our show, hopefully very soon. So I think Michael and Michael are looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
We
Oh
are.
yeah.
That should be a great discussion.
We always enjoy having guests on our shows because they offer insights that we can't. Okay. Speaking of Dal and his deep dive into the Constitution and history, this is a book that I picked up probably a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
It's U.S. Constitution and Other Writings. This book, and I found it actually at my Sam's Club, believe it or not. This book you can actually find various locations. It has basically all of our treaties and other important papers, starting with the Mayflower Compact.
That's
and
a good
working
one.
forward. It gives you a lot of insight into the history that got us to where we are today. I mean, it goes clear up to Hillary's campaign acceptance speech for Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Okay.
So that tells you the breadth from the Mayflower
Yeah.
Compact all the way up to 2016. Okay,
Wow.
and it gives a lot of information in that. You can actually read these documents that shaped our history. So I do highly advise that. And there are very other various resources. So if nothing else, educate yourselves, people. Know what was intended by our ancestors. Okay. They didn't intend for what we have going on today. They intended us to be a freedom loving people,
And
not
if you don't,
a people that succumb to government. In fact, that was the very thing they fought against.
and there is no excuse. Like if you don't have time to read, there are sources out there that are audiobooks that you can listen to on the way to work, at work, if you're doing a job that doesn't require your full attention. LibriVox, which is a audiobook company. They have free documentation that is in the public domain, done by volunteer readers, and is tied to the Gutenberg Project. They have things from Thomas Paine. They have Henry David Thoreau. They have John Locke. A bunch of the documentation that the founders pulled their ideas from while they were studying the various republics and other forms of government throughout history are all contained in audiobook format. So there is no reason why you can't listen to it at night before you go to bed. If you can't
While
read
you're
it,
driving
you
in
can
your
listen to it.
car.
Yeah. So there really is no lack of access when it comes to learning about your country and how it's supposed to operate. And even though it may sound very complicated in terms of the way that it's constructed, the way it was meant to operate, the intention that the founders had was that the layman would be able to understand the workings of government so that they could govern themselves as opposed to being ruled by an authoritarian regime.
True enough. Turn
Well, that's it.
Well, I'd like to add one other thing, being we're talking about doing your diligence and learning. Go to Hillsdale College online. They have all kinds of free courses.
Yes,
on
they
the
do.
Constitution, on immigration, on, I mean, just so many things. And again, it's all free.
DEI and wokeism. Like if you want to figure out what the chatter is about DEI and what it means to be woke, you can look at that from a constitutional perspective. Hillsdale will help you navigate that and actually put you through the inner workings, and you'll be better informed. Maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't, but at least you'll have the knowledge to be able to intelligently debate it.
Yep. Okay. There are, right now in our history, and this is what frustrates me the most. In our history, we have the opportunity to be the most informed people than any other time in our history. Okay. We have access to more resources today than we have ever had. So there is no excuse other than, I'm going to say, laziness, apathy,
Complacency.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is no excuse. Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Folks, we are here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We appreciate everybody that's in the chat. Michael Bowie, Agent Black, Peter, Soma, and everybody else that was in our chat tonight. Thank you very much. We do encourage people watch our show live and join in the chat. We oftentimes get a lot of commentary from our chat, and we use it sometimes in our show, or we show you the comments while we're talking. Sorry. But with that, thank you everybody for watching. We will see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern time, every Friday night.